It Happened on the Job, the podcast for relatable conversations with contractors. Sponsored by Goodman Insurance.
Welcome to It Happened on the Job, episode 106. Today, my name is Mike. That's Brian.
Yo, 106.
Yeah,
that's crazy. There. It's so weird. Today we have Miss Jade Nunes with SDB Contracting Services. She's got a list of titles. Most importantly, probably business development manager, but also awesomely ultra networker and Darth Jader. You got to explain that a little bit. What's the Darth Jader?
You know, this is one of those things that I want people to remember me, and inevitably people want to give me a nickname. But my argument with that is my name's easy enough and unique enough, and it's only 4 letters that you have to actually make the name more complicated by giving me a nickname. So if that's going to be the case, I'm going to dictate that. And Darth Jader has kind of stuck. So
I get black hair. She's got black hair for all the audio listeners. So that kind of works, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for coming on today. I know, I mean, nobody knows this because we're launching it as episode 106, but we were set to record yesterday and she was awesome and helped us out so that we could actually accomplish some things yesterday and come on today. So I really appreciate that. But wanted to, first question out the gate, how you got started. Obviously, you're working for a contracting company. SDB Contracting Services. So what was your history in terms of how you got to where you're at today with SDB?
Yeah, you know, it's a question I'm asked all the time, kind of as young woman, how did you end up in the construction industry? And it's totally by happenstance. So I studied journalism, and I do lean on that quite a bit. And I tell people it's what helps me talk to people and ask questions, which services the role, which I'll explain. But when I had gotten out of college, couldn't find a job in media at all, or one that at least paid what I wanted it to, and ended up working for Habitat for Humanity in Tucson, Arizona. I'm in Phoenix currently, but I started out in Tucson, and I was on a job site for 2 years, building homes at the nonprofit, owned steel-toed boots and a hard hat, and you know, the rest is history. Fell in love with the people first and foremost, and just kind of the camaraderie that's in the industry, and also working with a ton of the vendors out there on the site. So, but that's of course residential. I was later moving to Phoenix, and power of networking was found on LinkedIn by somebody at an architectural firm that I ended up working at for 2 years. Was brought on specifically to help their marketing department, but kind of fell into business development and had a kind of natural knack for talking to people and telling the firm's story and then bringing business in. And then, you know, my eyes got big and said, okay, I was selling retail and restaurant, little architectural projects or national rollout accounts, and not knocking that at all, but wanted to kind of broaden my horizons, and ended up going to another architectural firm where we were working specifically in like higher education, hospitality, so hotels and healthcare. And then COVID. And I actually was caught up in COVID layoffs, which is a pretty common story we're hearing, you know, a lot today. And couldn't take it personally, you know, because so many people have been affected by this. And again, power of networking kind of hit my LinkedIn network. And because of the last 3 years in the Phoenix Valley area, I've been, you know, kind of hitting the streets and making these incredible friendships. My network lifted me up so much, and it was kind of a stars aligned thing that got me into SDB. And so kind of a joke with that Darth Jader thing, you know, all my friends in the architectural side of the business are like, oh, you went to the dark side when you went to a general contractor. But no, it's been a blast, and it's kind of fun to see both sides of the industry and working with the different kinds of personalities that inherently are on both sides of that coin. And so I've been fairly blessed to have found myself here at SDB, and honestly just have such a cool family of people that I work with, but then, you know, feeling that I'm bringing forward an incredible network with me to this job. So
wait, let me back up a little bit. You got laid off in the middle of COVID, and then instead of just taking the extra $600 a week plus your unemployment, you actually went out and got another job?
Correct.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
That's weird how that works, right? Yeah.
I did about 2 weeks of unemployment. I was going crazy.
Yeah, I can see that.
So if we back up a little bit, I know you said you got into Habitat for Humanity. What were you doing for them specifically that got you into this industry? Yeah.
Yeah, I was their communication specialist. So actually going out and interviewing the volunteers who were on site, who were given of their time, and the homeowners who ended up benefiting from the program and telling their stories through marketing material in order to develop those relationships with corporate donors, kind of specifically development. So while it's still not the same as sales and kind of what I'm doing today, it definitely translates.
It's just funny to watch that. I mean, you got the journalism background and like the journalism background obviously leads to communication. Communication kind of got you into Habitat for Humanity where there's construction, and then you just kind of evolved and kind of gone 180 degrees, but through different channels. Yeah.
It definitely hasn't been a smooth ride, but it's been a fun one. So, and I'm still on that ride today. So
that's awesome. So how did SDB find you? I guess obviously through LinkedIn and your network, but what were they looking for in particular? Were they looking to fill your role specifically, or were they just interested in you and kind of found a role for you?
Actually, I kind of got ahead of it a little bit where, I had been setting up some meetings at the prior role, and one of those people ended up being who's now my boss. We had a lunch meeting, and I kind of explained, here's the situation. I'm no longer with them. Would still love to meet with you. And we did meet for lunch. And as we're sitting at this lunch table, he says, kind of funny story. My business developer is leaving on good terms. Not sure we're even going to backfill it, but we would let you know. And we talked for about 4 days before I got an offer. So, I mean, I truly do feel incredibly blessed for those circumstances, because I know not a lot of people, or not saying not a lot, but there are people in our industry right now that aren't as lucky. But it's just all about that relationship building. And these people that I currently work with knew of me beforehand, whether we had, cross paths at industry events or networking events. So I wasn't total stranger or cold calling on them looking for an opportunity. It was totally a warm relationship. So
that's awesome. So what kind of work does SDB do, and how are you involved specifically in developing the business? And what's your grand plan there to do that?
Sure. So SDB, first and foremost, really exciting for me is women owned.
Awesome.
We're not going out and doing ground up hospitals or, multi-million dollar projects. We're literally kind of your middle of the road, general contractor. We're in all kinds of sectors, K-12, higher ed, healthcare. We're well known as a clean room contractor. So we're in with some of these data processing plants, chip manufacturers. And we also have a couple in-house trades. So specifically mill shop in-house and our steel fabrication shop in-house. So ultimately what I do for the business is kind of have the function of creating long-term value as an organization, and capitalizing on that for our customers within certain market sectors. And it's all about building relationships. So, business development, I do feel, is not completely new to the industry, but what we fight as business developers is kind of that old school seller doer model.
Yeah, good old boy. Hey, I know him. He knows. Yeah.
And what I tell people is, while we still have those seller doers within our organization, those are the guys that are on projects constantly. And while they have 20% of their role might be also to bring in business, mine is 80% of the role is bringing business and talking to people and doing relationship building, but then also strategizing how we go out and talk to people. So it's not just happy hours and golf tournaments. Much to everyone's big surprise, there is quite a bit of market research and desk time, but a lot of what I do is kind of be that face of outwardly speaking to people and get to know them within, these specific targets underneath those sector umbrellas.
Are there different verticals you guys that maybe you have background or history in that you're looking to bring to SDB as a part of your history?
Oh, absolutely. And part of that is, I'm backed by an awesome team. My direct counterpart came from the procurement side. So she speaks a language that maybe I don't. I come from the architectural side. So I'm used to kind of talking to consultants and getting other bids, but knocking on those doors is something that I'm learning that might not have done prior, or the relationships was more of, well, we worked on a project with so-and-so and shake hands, let's get some more business from them, versus going out and actually targeting specifically strategic partners, architects and engineers who could open doors for us. And I think that's kind of the value I bring, of actually knowing that process ahead of when a project goes straight into construction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. What does that process look like for you from, maybe identifying somebody as somebody that you guys want to work with, to actually working with them? Obviously there's that relationship building process, but is there anything done, I guess on the labor side or the functional side, to make sure that there's somebody you guys can work with?
Yeah, it's tough because there's not like a shoot from the hip kind of strategy or process for every person that I'm talking to relationship wise. Because sometimes I might be talking to one of our sub-consultants who comes in and brings us an opportunity. Sometimes if I'm knocking on the doors of an architect or an engineer, I can go have that conversation and see, hey, what's the synergies that we might have as our team? Is there something that we can look at and provide some bid for, or something that you see coming down the pike that might totally be a fit for us? Great. It can go the other way, where we get ahead of an opportunity and I send it to an architectural partner who I know excels in a certain sector and say, hey, would you take a look at this if this is something you want to go after? And kind of building the value add. When I walk into any room, it's how can I build a win-win relationship with you guys? What do you need from me as a GC partner and my team? And what do I need from you? Those kinds of things. But at the same time, I am also super aware as a business developer that there are people who don't want to talk to me, the salesperson or the business developer, relationship builder. Like, they know that. So I'll bring along most often, or more often than not, people from my project teams to be able to talk nitty gritty specifics.
Right.
And so what I find is such a value, regardless of where in the process we are, is that I remember to keep it human and react to people who are, maybe not listening so much and are used to kind of saying, hey, they're expecting us to walk in and say, give us a job to bid right now,
right,
versus getting to know these people. So right. It really is a lot of strategy in how you follow up with people, and not, ghost them either. It's a relationship. I feel like I have, 30 active relationships in my life at any given time.
Right.
That's maybe an exaggeration, but some of these things take years to form before we're pre-qualified with somebody, or vice versa. Our firm does have a very stringent pre-qualification process. So, and that's because we, as a clean room contractor, want to keep our safety ratings really, really in good standing with those clients that we have. So we're very particular about who we end up partnering with. And so kind of knowing that we are strategic with who we contact or target. And we won't go after certain projects if it's a, high risk or something we're not apt to do. So like I said, it's a lot more research and strategy than I think some people give us credit for.
Well, no, and I think that's perfect. And kind of on that, I mean, a lot of the people listening may not be at the point where they can hire a business development manager, right? So a lot of these contractors with X number of employees, whatever it is, whatever that threshold is, a typical threshold, they're doing it themselves as the owner, or as, as the CEO or whatever. So I guess to that point, what have you found to be the most successful or the best tool or aid or process, whatever you do to kind of grow that network? What has been, one of the two of the most successful ways to do that for you particularly?
So for me, I'm a huge believer in this idea of like 7 touches. It takes 7 times for somebody to see our name or my name, for them to be like, oh, you know what? They do X kind of project, or they have a very good history of working in a specific sector. And so what I mean by 7 touches is actually working with our marketing department, putting thought leadership pieces together, blasting stuff on my personal LinkedIn, on our company's LinkedIn as a tool. So those might be 2 touches. A third is our website. A fourth is seeing me at an industry event. A fifth is a direct follow-up email. A 6th might be us going to coffee. A 7th, that's kind of this process. And it's very fun for me to see all of that working together. So, a lot of, for me, the biggest tools are participating in either my client organizations or networking organizations, and really being active and on those, what we call like the personal branding sites. So LinkedIn and social media, I feel like can be that low-hanging fruit tool, but it is such an easy way, especially in our virtual world, to get those multiple touches out there. So that might be my number 1 tool. The second is just having a very incredible database that I can use, and that's your client management system or contact management system, CMS, that we can actually go in and say, the last time we called on XYZ person was years ago. And it's, as we all know, it's much easier to get business from repeat clients than it is and more cost effective to find new ones. So I would say those are my 2 main tools.
So kind of on that, the 7 touch thing I love. Is that just an idea for you, knowing that I have to be in all these different places and we have to be at all these different places, both digitally and physically, to get to 7? Or are you actually tracking 7 per?
No, it's more of an idea. And, you could say 12, you could say 15.
Right.
Being in the communication side and marketing side for the time that I was, we definitely talked about some of these ideals. I don't track numerically anymore, but when I was brand new to business development, it was like, okay, every 2 weeks, this specific client I'd try to get in with, now it's a little more organic because I've, become
you've got that network, right? Like
exactly.
Yeah.
And, some of those touches too is, well, my network might know the client that I'm trying to get ahead of. So I have them do a warm intro for me. Well, that takes way less pressure off of me doing the cold call, cold email, almost bypassing those first 3 steps, if you will.
Yeah.
When you actually have that reference from somebody else. So
and I love what you mentioned about the social media part too, because we've had, so in the contracting space, obviously there's the 2 main sectors, right? The business to business and the business to consumer, right? The residential versus the commercial, and the residential guys seem to be real, the ones that are, doing it successfully or being deliberate about the social media. That seems to help them out quite a bit, because that's where homeowners and consumers are looking for background and history on somebody. And on the flip side, we find that a lot of people that do the commercial stuff kind of say, not a big deal for me. Like, that's not where, developers or GCs are going to look for, new clients or this, or that. But from a branding aspect, I love what you guys are doing. So, I mean, on that, obviously it sounds like they were probably doing something before you got there, but what kind of deliberate things are you guys doing via social media or digital marketing to kind of help that brand awareness?
Well, and I think it's a growing, there's growing pains to some of this. I think one of the things that we're doing that's really unique or specific is working directly with we have a marketing team and our business development team, but those things are so intertwined. So me actually kind of feeding our marketing team, like, hey, I'm going after XYZ specific sector or specific project that we know is coming up, whether that's, with a municipality or a healthcare client. Let's highlight some of those projects in that sector that we've been heavily successful on or have been visible on, whether it's a media story, or let's highlight the people in our organization who are kind of the shining stars of that sector, or the thought leaders of that sector. Let's put them out there, because while it might not be that, the good old boys have used social media in the past, that growth, we're in a virtual world right now.
Yeah.
It's completely an underutilized tool in kind of the commercial side, I believe. So
100%.
Us getting out ahead of it and being more strategic with that messaging and is going to help us immensely. It makes my job easier when I go and I sit with somebody and they're like, oh, I saw you guys. Were you guys the one that did XYZ project at the airport? Or were you guys the one that was working with that healthcare client? I'm like, yeah, that was us. You saw it on LinkedIn, right? That makes my job 10 times easier.
I love what you said too. Like if you're going after like a certain project or a certain,
already very intentional.
Being very intentional about what you're doing there, because I don't disagree that a developer or, an owner or a GC is out there searching social media for their next relationship. But at the same time, like you said, when that opportunity does come along, if you've been relevant and visible on social media, it kind of gives you that warm introduction or that warm lead almost lead in, rather than just being a cold handshake.
Right.
Without
and that's
knowing anybody.
Really what all it comes down to. I mean, have I ever had somebody see our LinkedIn account and call me up directly and say, hey, I have a job for you?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
That would be great. But it's more of that warm intro of like, they've already seen a touch, and it didn't take us much time, money, or effort to get that out there.
Right. You're reinforcing the idea of SDB contracting before you even got there. And that,
correct. Yeah. And then showing up too at trade shows, showing up at golf tournaments, all of that does, become part of that. We just actually went to a golf tournament on Friday, and, I have friends of mine personally who are like, is all you do at work golf?
Do you actually play?
I do, actually.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
So I'm like, yes, I do golf. But, we show up with 2 foursomes. We sponsor a hole for, the lowest sponsorship that we could find. But it was at an organization called Design Build Institute of America, so DBIA, second one in Arizona that they've ever had. And we're out there in force. You can be quite sure that there's people who are going to recognize our logo going forward.
Yep. I couldn't agree with you more. And I love that you guys have seen the value in that and are actually moving forward, especially in the industry we're in now, where that's probably very forward thinking relative to most other companies in this industry right now.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing that a lot of the people we talk to that don't participate in that at all, especially on the commercial side, I think the thought is, well, why? What's the point? And maybe there's some truth to that, but I think we're seeing this wave that's washing over the construction industry, and it's already trending towards that way. So, and to your point, Jade, earlier, where you said for not a lot of time or effort or money, we were able to get something up. And not only that, when I'm going to sit down with and meet with them, I'm reinforcing the idea of who we are and what we can do. And then they're saying, oh yeah, didn't you just do that airport? Didn't you just do that? Whatever project.
I think if you're in the residential space, the idea is that, those kind of things, that digital marketing and social media will result in inbound phone calls to you, which is 100% true.
Yeah.
That's probably the case.
Because
I think that the people on the commercial side think that should be the result also. When I strongly disagree, right? It's more about what you guys are doing with the brand awareness. It's like you said, you're not going to get somebody to pick up a phone call because of an Instagram post that they saw. But conversely, when you walk in the door to say hi or shake their hand, or you see them at the next networking event or whatever it is, they've seen you and know who you are. And
now the other part to it too, I would also argue, is just this year, what we've seen in 2020 is people have more time at their computer screens.
Yep.
Do you want that piece of real estate where it's your logo in front of them versus somebody else's? Right. I think there's more of an argument that less people are going to trade shows or conferences. They're at their computer or doing virtual events too. And for us, it's
like awesome podcasts.
Awesome podcasts. Absolutely. I didn't want to be as blunt and say like, this is a perfect touch if I'm going to share this all over myself.
Oh, no, there's no shame in that at all. Nope. I mean, we are, and you won't hurt our feelings thinking that this is great marketing for you. We understand that that's the benefit for our guests. I mean, we obviously love talking and it helps us out. And it's all it is. Like we're doing exactly what you're talking about right now, right? We're networking, we're creating relationships, we're creating brand awareness for everybody, and it's digitally, right? Mm-hmm. So it's, yeah.
I know it's exhausting, and sometimes at the last, and I think that this is what maybe some of my seller doers struggle with is, they're doing their project work all day long, and it's almost left brain, right brain thinking,
Yep.
right? Like, I'm not going to sit down and come up with this creative post or way to tell a story after I've just been on the phone, on site, all these things. And so that's why why I see so much benefit or, ahead of the curve, if you will, by having business development in-house working side by side with marketing.
Well, and I feel like you're kind of living your calling in that sense, right? I mean, from the get-go, from college and, Habitat for Humanity. I mean, you kind of, you're business development manager, ultra networker, right? So that's a huge part of business development, creating those relationships and fostering them so that when it comes around, because I mean, at the end of the day, yes, you're a company, you're in business to turn a profit to some extent so that people can continue to work and so on and so forth. But, at the same time, that networking capability that you have, I think is not everybody has, I guess, is my point. And so, yes, I think there's to some small, for some small amounts of money and time and effort, yes, they can do it themselves. But I think there's something to be said for bringing on somebody that has that natural talent, pretty much like anything, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I do see it in my teams where there's this like almost sigh of relief when I'm there with them at a lunch and they don't want to be, asking about like the family, the kids, what do you like to do in your free time kind of thing. And I'm there kind of being the icebreaker. They're like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Thank you for being there. Like,
Ask me the technical questions. I don't want to do the small talk, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And when they start talking technical, by all means.
Yeah.
And that's what's kind of fun for me when I explain to people, especially in my age group, who are like, what do you do, all day for a construction company? It doesn't quite click. When I explain, like, I just sat down with somebody and for an hour I talked about airplanes, how this person was a pilot. Mm-hmm. And the next, 2 weeks later, I'm calling and actually talking about a project with my project, manager. And then ultimately, submitting a bid on the project and working with this person. That's what I do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, kind of getting them from start to finish. It's awesome. So what's the future look like for you? I mean, I know it's hard to say, you kind of just started there, but what's the grand plan here?
Because I mean, we're all kind of in limbo right now, right? Because I'm working from home again. I was back in an office with COVID having kind of not subsided, it's around, but working side by side with my project team was awesome because we were all in office and now we're kind of moving back with cases on the rise. So it is hard to say what the future holds. What I think is good now is maybe in this second wave, and I'm sitting in Arizona where we are kind of seeing a spike in cases in the second wave, and I think everyone kind of is, but I don't want to be too generic or general, is that now we're kind of better poised to continue per usual, if you will, like the new normal, right? Yeah. The first time it happened, business developers, especially, in my role, it was like, how do I continue networking? How do I continue like hitting multiple people at an event? You're not handing out business cards anymore, and having to be a little more creative. So actually, it was a good learning lesson for those first couple months when we were in full lockdown, to now being, going into this future state, being much more confident in that it is business as usual. There is ways to get ahead of people. There are ways that we can have great conversations. Technology's amazing tool. And it's quite interesting. The future for SDB personally, I cannot wait to see what 2021 has to bring for us, because we're doing so much strategic planning right now. And actually working together, my project teams, my marketing team, my counterpart, myself, we're all sitting down in rooms and kind of brain dumping. How do we get ahead of, certain sectors, and doing the research together so that next year, we're going to hit the ground running and say, we were ready for this because we've done the research and we've done the forecasting, and that's so powerful. So I'm excited, and then just as a young professional, I do miss the networking and I do miss going out and meeting people in person. But I do feel like there's been a more humanizing conversations that have come from this whole entire thing. And maybe I'm just way too positive and not forward thinking, but
optimistic. Yeah.
Thank you. But I do find that, I'm having people that are like, hey, what's that painting in the background? And remembering that I like art, or, having people that are like, oh, it's just so nice to talk to somebody that's less, cold over the Zoom platform. So,
right.
So I have a lot of hope. I think that more than anything, this pandemic has really forced our industry, the AEC industry, to evolve tenfold versus the track that it was actually on prior.
100%. Yeah. We talk about it all the time. And it's funny because that was kind of I don't want to say the impetus, but part of the planning of this show was like, hey, let's try and push, this industry a little bit to,
a digital
space and into that tech. And then literally a month after we started,
not even that.
Yeah. It was 2 weeks. Yeah. It was like late February that we started like talking to people about coming on the show. And then all of a sudden everything was on lockdown, and
we bought a third mic.
Yeah. We were forced to figure out how to do it over Zoom, and all our clients too, or not the clients, but our guests were we figured out Zoom, and like you said, it's kind of pushed everybody to, figure out ways to work from home and be more efficient doing that, and bringing the tech into it. A bit
smaller too, because otherwise I'd probably be sitting next to you guys having this conversation, and yet we can do it a state line apart.
We're not even. We might not even have met. I mean, we weren't even thinking initially that we would go outside
our initial
of our
plan was
region.
just inside Orange County and LA, San Diego, Orange County, and then when this hit and we realized, oh, this is easy to do over Zoom, we're like, well, hell, let's invite people from all over. Why not?
We've got people now from Texas, Arizona. I mean, like crazy.
It's crazy.
It's like you said, it's making the world a lot smaller for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Are you guys, so just one last question real quick. I usually like to finish with the future, and it makes a nice segue into the ending, but I never asked, are you guys, where are you guys at geographically from like the work you guys do? Is it just inside Arizona? Is it Western states or what?
No, so actually, so our headquarters were in Tempe, Arizona, which, if you're familiar with the Phoenix area, is
home of the Anaheim Angels.
And so we do service most of Arizona. We have a Dallas office in Texas, and we also have an Oregon office for one of our major clients up there who had specifically asked us to kind of set up shop out there to service them.
That's awesome.
So we do work all over, which is great. And a lot of that is kind of our in-house trade too. So like, for example, our Oregon office kind of specializes in scaffolding that we self-perform. So we're a fairly diverse group of people, which I'm blessed to be a part of. So
that's awesome. Well, we're glad you found a home in the middle of that and didn't just sit back and collect your unemployment. That's sounds like you're doing a great job, and we appreciate you taking the time. Before we let you go, I want to let you let the people know where to find you.
Sure.
Websites, social medias, phone numbers, emails, whatever it is.
Yeah. On phone number, you're going to contact me at 520-904-9038. Text or call. Instagram is just my name, Jade, last name Nunes, Nunes. Definitely check out SDB Contracting online at sdb.com. And then find me on LinkedIn. There's not too many Jade Nunes in the world, so and then I'm pretty easy to find.
Fantastic. Awesome.
Well, thank you, Jade. Appreciate you coming on the show today.
Of course. This was an absolute pleasure. So thanks for what you guys do.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Thanks so much for the time, and keep in touch. We'll have to, if you get out to Orange County, come hang out at our office. We got a golf simulator.
Yeah, you can actually play golf.
Bring your golf clubs and come hang out.
Deal.
Awesome. Thanks, Jade. Cool. Appreciate it. Stay safe.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening. And if you've made it this far, go ahead and give us a like or 5 stars or whatever means you like us.
Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. And check out our website for more video content and extras.
While you're there, shoot us a message if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.